Rita was excited to visit her boyfriend, Daniel, in his family home for the first time. He had promised her a weekend full of love and surprises. But little did she know, she was walking into a deadly trap. The moment she stepped into the house, something felt off. The air was thick with a strange smell, and Daniel's parents watched her with eyes that carried secrets. That night, as she lay in bed, she overheard whispers about a ritual, a sacrifice. And her name was mentioned. Rita Journey Story. Her heart skipped a beat. After 2 years of dating, she had waited for this moment. Meeting the parents meant the relationship was getting serious. But something about the message felt odd. Daniel had always avoided the topic of his family. Anytime she asked about them, he'd brush it off with a forced smile. Still, she ignored the small voice in her head. Love made people blind, after all. Rita called her best friend, 𝗕𝗁, to share the news. Finally, right? She said excitedly. But 𝗕𝗁 was silent for a moment before responding. Are you sure about this, Rita? You barely know anything about them. Rita laughed. It's just a weekend visit. What's the worst that can happen? She had no idea that stepping into Daniel's family home would be the beginning of her worst nightmare. The sun hung low in the sky as Rita packed her small travel bag, humming a song to calm her nerves. Excitement and unease wrestled inside her. It was just a weekend visit, yet something in 𝗕𝗁's voice earlier had unsettled her. As she locked her apartment, 𝗕𝗁 called again. Rita, I have a bad feeling about this. Rita rolled her eyes. You and your bad feelings. I love Daniel, and this is important. 𝗕𝗁 sighed. At least send me the location when you arrive. And if anything feels wrong, leave immediately. Fine, Rita said, eager to end the call. She boarded the bus heading toward Daniel's village. 𝗁𝗁, a name that loosely translated to a place of mystery. She had never been there before. Daniel always visited her in the city, making excuses whenever she asked about his home. But now, she was finally going to see where he came from. The journey stretched for hours, moving from paved roads to rough, red earth paths surrounded by thick forests. As the bus rumbled through the countryside, an old woman sitting beside Rita turned to her suddenly. You are going to 𝗁𝗁? She asked, her voice raspy. Rita nodded. The old woman's eyes darkened. Be careful, my child. That place. It is not what it seems. A shiver ran down Rita's spine. What do you mean? The woman sighed and shook her head. Just remember, when the night whispers, listen. And if your spirit tells you to run, run. Before Rita could ask more, the bus jerked to a stop. She turned to Daniel's message on her phone. Looking outside, Rita saw an abandoned marketplace, its wooden stalls covered in vines. The place felt dead. She stepped off the bus, and before she could say another word, it drove away, leaving her alone. The road was silent. The air thick and still. Then, a hand grabbed her shoulder. She spun around. It was Daniel. But something about his smile sent a chill down her spine. Welcome to 𝗁𝗁, he said. Let's go home. Rita's feet felt heavy as she followed Daniel down a narrow dirt path leading away from the market. They finally reached his family home, a large, old compound surrounded by towering trees. The house itself was made of red mud bricks, its thatched roof sagging. Daniel pushed open the wooden door. "Come in," he said. Rita hesitated. Her grandmother's voice whispered in her head. Her heart was pounding now. But she forced a smile and stepped inside. The air was thick with a strange, bitter scent. The walls were lined with old carvings, faces of creatures she didn't recognize, eyes hollow and haunting. Skins of animals hung from the ceiling, dried herbs tied in bunches near the door. A tall woman stood by the fire, stirring a blackened pot. Her face was sharp, her gaze piercing. Her arms were covered in tribal scars. Daniel's mother. "So, this is the girl?" she said without turning. Daniel nodded. "Yes, Mama." The woman finally turned, studying Rita with unsettling intensity. "You are welcome," she said. But her smile did not reach her eyes. Then, a deep voice came from the shadows. "Come closer, girl." Rita turned to see a man seated in a wooden chair. Daniel's father. His presence was powerful, his dark eyes sharp, almost predatory. His hands, large and calloused, rested on a wooden staff with intricate carvings. Or was not the Daniel she thought she knew. His face was cold, expressionless. His eyes, once warm, were now dark voids. His clothes were different too, no longer the simple jeans and t-shirt from earlier. He wore a red robe, embroidered with golden symbols, the same symbols carved in the hidden passage, and in his hand, he held a knife. "Rita," he said softly, "child, a woman who is not afraid of darkness will always find her way out." She took a deep breath. She was not going to die here. She looked at Daniel, at the knife in his hand. With a sudden burst of energy, she lunged forward, grabbing his wrist before he could react. The knife clattered to the floor. For a moment, there was only the sound of their heavy breathing. "Daniel," Rita said, her voice low and steady. "You don't have to do this. You can walk away. You can stop this. It's not too late." Rita ran. The path through the village was familiar now, the trees that had once felt suffocating now standing as silent witnesses to her escape. She didn't stop. She didn't look back. God will always guide those who seek His light.